Hello and good evening to all. Welcome to Latin Libertarians. My name is Martha Bueno. Tonight is August 25th, Wednesday night. And as usual, I am here with my co-host, Mr. Zach Foster. Hello, Zach. How are you this evening?
Hello. This evening, happy to report to you that my team working remotely has been able to successfully extract 3 out of 5 people from Afghanistan. Cannot go into any further details, but 3 out of 5 is a lot better than nothing. I'll update you guys about that next week.
Awesome. We also heard from the Cuban LP, huh?
Yeah. Once again, another round of bad news. So due in part not to the protests themselves, but because of the legal climate that the regime enacted after the protest. Long story short, Ubaldo Herrera Hernandez, who was a member of the Cuban LP, was having a conversation from his porch with one of his neighbors. As some of our viewers already know, in many communist countries, Cuba included, state security will designate spies on every single block so that no conversation that's within public earshot is a secret conversation. So within a short time of him having this conversation on his front porch, state security shows up with the Black Berets, which is police special forces, and they dragged this guy away still barefoot. He had no time whatsoever to say goodbye to his wife or his mother. They just came for him, put him in handcuffs, and then that was it. So while Marisol Peña and her husband have been released, with Ubaldo Herrera in prison again, that means that the number of Cuban libertarians in prison is at least 3.
Oh, well, that's terrible. That is absolutely terrible to hear. We've had a whole bunch of people from the Cuba LP end up in jail, be released, which is a good part. But do you think they're targeting specifically because they're LP, because they think differently, or what do you think?
Not necessarily for being part of the LP. As far as the regime sees it, the Libertarian Party of Cuba is just another brand. The most important part is that these people are counter-revolutionary. So whether it's in thought, in practice, in words, they're against the Castros, which means they're against the revolution, which means they're enemies of the people, and they must be treated as such.
Fun times. Fun times we're living through. So just to give people a little bit of an update in Cuba, nothing's really changed in the last week. Everything's kind of the same. The government still is killing people. Yeah, it's
the feds are still kind of teasing about Wi-Fi. Every few days, you'll see one federal official kind of talk about we're still talking about that Wi-Fi.
Yeah, it
But
took
that's
a
the
month and
problem,
a half, and
A
we
lot of
still
people
don't
are
have
still
Wi-Fi.
talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be funny if it wasn't so sad and so tragic how here in the United States, our politicians will go on TV and talk about the situation and say and promise, especially here in Miami, since I don't know about in California, but Miami being the biggest place where you can find Cuban Americans, it's all over our news about how we're doing something for Cuba, and then they do nothing. Nothing has happened. So that's our update on Cuba. And of course, the Cuba LP member in jail is big news, but unfortunately happens quite a lot. So
It's
we
a
do have
tragedy with this particular guy because he spent 4 years in prison and he's just gotten out in December. So
really.
he had already done 4 years in the regime's prisons. He'd been free for about 8 months. Now it looks like he's going back.
And I would bring up a picture, but my computer is malfunctioning. I don't believe we will be able to bring up pictures this evening. There's something going on with their programming. So we do have pictures of him, but unfortunately, I am unable to bring him up. But we do have a guest, and that is not giving us any technical difficulties. So I'm going to go ahead and bring her out. Our guest is, her name is Anna. And she's with Ladies of Liberty Alliance, LOLA, in Toronto, which I absolutely adore Ladies of Liberty. I think that it's a great organization. If you haven't heard about them, I hope you hear about them tonight and give them an opportunity. So here is Anna. Hello. Good evening.
Hi, Marta. Hi, Zach. Thank you for inviting me to this show. It's the first time that I come here, and I already love it. What Zach said about Cuba is completely true. Persecuting people for being counter-revolutionaries. I was nodding all the time in the backstage.
That
And
wasn't real
well,
socialism.
exactly. Oh my God. And thank you for inviting me.
Oh, thank you for being here. So you are out in Toronto now. You actually started the Ladies of Liberty Alliance chapter in Toronto, but where are you from originally?
I'm from Venezuela originally, so that's why I'm familiar also with certain Cuban techniques, unfortunately, of oppression. And, it is pretty much, I have been living in Canada since 2016. So it has been 5 years already. And since I moved here, I started to, do some connections, meeting people in the libertarian movement. And, usually it's a very small group. We're not that many, unfortunately. We should be more. And also because I was an alumni of Cato Institute, some friends who were also part of Cato invited me to participate in LOLA and, to create this chapter in Toronto, which is the first chapter in Canada. So it's a good thing that we're doing here, but also a lot of work. And yes, we're happy to take in this step.
What exactly is LOLA? What is the mission? What is it that for everybody that's watching that doesn't know?
The Ladies of Liberty Alliance is an organization that is focused on promoting the ideas of liberty, especially to women. So, I don't know if it happens the same in the States, but it's common that you go to a libertarian, let's say, meeting or talk, presentation, and most of people there are men. Like, women are usually like just a few of them compared to men. And,
I'm thinking of
there's
the meme of the monkey doing the guilty eyes.
Why are you doing the guilty eyes?
There's
That's not
nothing
true.
wrong with men being libertarian, actually. Good thing men can be libertarian too. But we want more women to get involved in the libertarian cause. So we want more women to follow the path of liberty because we think that we can be the best ambassadors. Like, honestly, when we have a free market economy, when we are able to pursue the life that we want, when we're able to, to be entrepreneurs, we win. That's a reality. So, unfortunately, um, feminism has been very used by the progressive left. And that's something that's one of the missions of Lola, to actually save feminism from this left that has been using feminism as a flag. Many of them say things that, socialism, like feminism cannot exist without socialism. And I'm like, no, darling, socialism is the best way to destroy women's rights. That's a reality. So, that's the purpose of Lola.
I love it, and I am familiar with Lola, and I am, well, not a member, but I hope to be soon. I know that Lola has a lot of chapters specifically in Latin America, which I find fascinating, especially because, as you said, we need more women participating in politics in general, but especially the liberty movement. And I have been seeing more women coming to politics. I don't know if it's just me that because I'm a woman and maybe I come across more women, but I have been noticing since my time being involved in the party that there are more women in the movement. And so definitely organizations like Lola are needed, are wanted, and I think we're seeing the effects of that. So tell us from what part of Venezuela you are and why you left.
Well, I'm from the countryside in Venezuela, the Guarico state, like a place that no one really remembers in Venezuela usually. But, I lived in Valencia. I also lived in Caracas before moving. And the reason why I left is, well, the reason why many Venezuelans have left. Like, life became unbearable. There was a point where, doing lines to buy food only on certain days, that is when the government allowed you to buy food, it could consume hours of your life. And unfortunately, my salary as a corporate lawyer then was like $30 per month. You cannot
Wow.
make exactly like you cannot make any progress in your life under this system. And you know, it was unfortunate. Also, rampant violence, and the Venezuelan government used criminality as a way to also push for, you know, for the middle class to live mainly. So that unfortunately was also like a sad reality, and I didn't want to be in that place anymore. And you know, it was tough. Like, if it wasn't because the country was completely broken back then, I don't think I would have left, because starting in a new country is difficult, especially if you're a lawyer. Like, I cannot work as a lawyer here unless I get all my studies done, which is very expensive. And you know, it is very tough, but I think it was the right decision to make, especially because, as like many Venezuelans do, my sister and I were the ones supporting my parents back home. If it wasn't because of us, they would be having a harder time. And you know, it is what it is.
That is very true. It is hard to leave one's country and find a new country. But I think that people need to know what it's like to live in Venezuela, especially people that don't particularly know the ins and outs, especially our American libertarians were maybe not as familiar with the system. And it ties into Venezuela when Cuba, because I guess Cuba kind of leads the charge on socialism in Latin America. So I do think it's important for people to know what it's like. Thank you for sharing your experience with us.
I'm sure our audience is probably thinking right now, Martha and Zach seem to know a lot of Venezuelans living in random countries. How could this be?
I think we do know a lot of Venezuelans that live in random countries, Zach.
One thing that I'm curious about, and probably a lot of our audience, what was the process of getting naturalized or getting residency or asylum or whatever that legal status was in Canada? Because for folks over here, they're having a really difficult time.
Well, you know that it was very tough. It was very tough. And it's funny because when I lived in Venezuela, I was already a libertarian. I consider myself a libertarian. And when I moved to Canada, I realized, like, wow, the government doesn't work anywhere. It's incredible. So so basically, I come here, and you know, it was a slow process. I come here as a student. I, to be honest, I was lucky compared to many other Venezuelans, because my family, we managed to open a bank account in the US, and they save in US dollars for years. So that kind of helped my sister and I to, you know, to be able to resettle in North America. But, you know, I applied to my student visa. A fact that is important to bring on is that Canada is not accepting any student visa from Venezuela anymore. And they are not even accepting visitor visas from Venezuelans anymore, which is completely discriminatory, but is what is happening. So, you know, when I started the process, I realized that first they committed a mistake believing that I was coming to study English instead of doing a postgraduate in international business. So I wasn't even able to get like a partial work permit to sustain myself. In the process of trying to get all this fixed, I even finished my postgraduate. That's when they answered back to me. That give you an idea of how long every process is in Canada. Like, waiting for your residency can take more than a year. And you know, that's already starting from many years ago. Like, I got my permanent residence in Canada last year, and I moved here in 2016. So it was a lot of years of waiting. It was a lot of money spent in lawyers, in fees, in education. It's very, very expensive. And the good thing is that Canada became more open to Venezuelan refugees. That was the good part of it, right? The problem is that many Venezuelans cannot come to Canada unless they can, like, land in the United States first, because there's no direct flight between Venezuela and Canada. So, you know, usually what they do, the few of them that can actually move to Canada, is like many of the connected flights are in the United States. So if they cannot get a US visa either, it's really bad.
Yeah, a lot of folks get cut off the pass by ICE agents inside the airport.
Exactly. So it's very like, and I will say that back then the immigration process seems easy. That's what many agents will tell you. Many people will say, like, especially immigration lawyers, they will tell you like, yeah, because this is the way it goes in Canada, it's very smoothly. But if immigration makes a little mistake with your case, what they did, that is what they did with me, it could be a very long process and with a lot of money to spend, thousands of dollars.
So what I'm
Wow.
hearing is you have to have money to be able to become a resident of Canada.
Of Canada, yeah.
You have to have
Only
money and the ability to do like what the Starship Enterprise does by like moving through great distances at the speed of light and like not get caught by migratory birds.
exactly, basically. It's sad, but it's true. But many people they come here, and what they do is that when they finally make it here, let's say that they are part of this lucky circle that have a US visa, they can go to the United States and then cross to Canada and they claim asylum. And that's what some are doing now. That's something that you can do like only in a special time of the year, because otherwise it's winter and you're gonna go through hell if you do that.
So I'm curious about something. Just living over there, would you please tell us your perception as somebody who spent a few years over there? Tell us about the great love of Michael Moore, that being Canada's socialized healthcare system.
Look, that's an interesting story right there that you just what you just said. It's hilarious because I see Canadians or many people talking about the socialized healthcare, but Canadians, when they cannot get a procedure done here, they go to the United States. And that make you ask yourself, why do they do that? If their healthcare is so wonderful. Oh well, but it's because your socialized healthcare, let's say that you need to get a surgery and they tell you that you need to wait 6 months. And in the meantime, you are just done, because there is that's the thing that I find amazing about this place, and not in a good way, is that they have all public hospitals, no private competition is allowed. Like, not even in Venezuela we had like that. We have the hospitals and the private clinics that you can get the same thing, if you have money to pay for it. Here, nothing, like only public. So it is like, is this is your choice, or go abroad and check for other options.
But I'm going to
And I
assume
So
that going abroad is only for people, again, with money.
yeah, I was gonna say a lot of Americans go to Tijuana or Juarez because over here it's too expensive, and it sounds like Canadians are going down to the
to
US
America,
because it's just not available.
exactly. Like, the crazy look, I have this story of my landlady. She actually, like, the person that owns this apartment, she's from Lebanon, and her husband had to get like a knee surgery, and they gave her such a waiting time, like long waiting time. It was like more than 6 months, that she decided to go to Lebanon with her husband and get the surgery there. Just imagine traveling to the Middle East just to do that.
That
Medical
is,
tourism in Lebanon, that's a new one.
I'd never heard of that one. I mean,
I'll
Mexico,
have to
I've
tell
heard
that to the
of.
guys at the VFW post. I'm sure they'll eat that one up.
Oh my
We do have
God,
a comment
no.
here that I'm going to post. Latino here, the Canadian healthcare system is not perfect, but give it to me a million times over the US for profit system. I guess people,
If you got 6 months, then that's cool.
And no, 6 months. Look, it can be that you're lucky and great, you get your surgery in time. It can be that you wait 6 months, or it can be that you have coronavirus. All the hospitals are keeping like beds reserved for COVID patients that never arrived. And guess what? They will keep you waiting even longer. I know people who had to get, again, different surgery procedures delayed more than usual because of COVID. So, and again, these people, they don't have any other option other than waiting.
I mean, I think that's
Yeah,
happening here in the
also
US too. A little
it's
bit.
it's
We are
an
delaying.
oh yeah, definitely. But I was gonna say about the whole for-profit thing. Healthcare is not expensive in this country because of the for-profit model. Healthcare is expensive because government has overstepped its bound, and even though it has not totally socialized everything, they are picking winners and losers. For example, Dr. Kyle Varner, who's a lifetime member of the party, he actually had me help him with some research a couple of years ago about like actual concrete reasons so that libertarians could do policy proposals. Number one thing we found is certificate of need. In most US states, you cannot build a hospital or a clinic without the medical board giving you a certificate of need. And in most cases, applicants are denied because it will unduly affect the planned business of the other hospitals in a particular district. The problem is, though, people have medical emergencies, and then maybe all the NICU beds at one particular hospital will be taken up. Or we're talking about the insurance game kicking in on top of certificate of need, where maybe they have whatever it is that you need at this hospital, but your insurance don't cover that. So your choice is to go to one where it is covered. Maybe you got a longer wait time, or maybe you just got to go outside of your insurance and you're paying $58,000 for that appendectomy completely out of pocket. But it's false competition, picking winners and losers. Those are absolutely, without a doubt, the top reasons why it's so expensive here. And that was not for my co-host, that was for our audience.
Yes. Yes, it is expensive here, but also we have, I think it's 2 hospital beds, 2 ICU beds per 1,000 patients, per 1,000 residents. So, I mean, if there is a very severe need, like they're claiming it is now with COVID, I'm saying claiming because I don't know, and I don't want to hear from people later, like, it's not like that. Okay, let's just assume that it's correct and there's a lot of beds taken. 2 per 1,000 people just seems like a low number, and that's kind of where they keep it at. So
also, you want to add a 3rd hospital bed, you got to get the government's approval, and you got to get a certificate of need just to increase the number of hospital beds, because the number of people that a hospital can accumulate right now has already been figured into the government's plan for what places need care and what places don't, which our whole argument is it's not their decision. And we see how those decisions are hurting consumers.
And the greatest part is now, while we have had the need for the past almost 2 years now that we've been dealing with COVID, no hospitals were really built. None of this, nothing has been done to help the situation really in terms of hospital beds. We've been hearing we can't overwhelm the hospitals. In a free market, more hospitals would have been built. More hospitals would have been built so that more people can then go to them. And then there's no risk of overwhelming the hospitals because we have enough. We know that government is terrible at planning the economy. And here's just another reason. They're just showing how terrible they are.
Now, this is a question.
Go ahead, Zach.
I'm absolutely dying to ask our guests this question on behalf of any of our guests. So, being involved in politics up in Canada, how do average folks that on the left and on the right talk about us down here in the States? What are they saying about us?
Tell us the dirt.
Oh my God, I go say I'm in Canada right now, but yeah, not very good things. Like, it depends. Many people on the right are actually considering, with all this craziness of the vaccine mandates and all this, they think that maybe states like Florida will become like the only place where people are going to be free eventually. Like, that's the perception that they have here. Like,
Florida is the last bastion of freedom on earth.
Yeah,
exactly. It's like the
I call
Canyon
BS
of
on that.
freedom, something like that. So people like that think. People think that way. Other people it's very funny when it comes to the left, especially progressives, because sometimes I talk to them and they say things like, "But in the United States they don't have free healthcare like we do. In the United States, people are too greedy. In the United States, people are they come with a bunch of excuses or comments, but then they will kill to get a job in the United States because they say that, oh, it's the jobs there, they pay higher than in here, better salary, better this, better that. Like, so you hate America, but you kind of want to benefit from the system they have, because it all comes down to a system. Like, why don't we have the high paying jobs here? why do we have inflation increasing? Like, why do we have all this? Don't you think that it might be that the state is intervening too much? Food for thought.
You're killing them with the logic there.
Another
Seriously.
thing that I've noticed a difference is there's a lot of folks in the United States who speak a second language. Some of them do that for ethnic reasons. Others just learn Spanish as a business language. You'd be surprised how many gringos and black folks, like in LA, San Diego, Las Vegas, just learn Spanish because it's convenient for business. But nobody ever forced those folks to learn Spanish. The only requirement for anything having to do with a foreign language is 2 years if you're in school. Other than that, nothing. But what's the language situation up there in Canada? And could the signs please agree?
We have two official languages in Canada, of course, excluding like the native people, language that they speak in some places. But the most spoken languages are English and French. And when it comes to French, it's a very interesting thing because basically, if you go to, I don't know, food labels in Canada, all of them are in English and French. If you go for, let's say a public office in Ontario, an hospital, all of the information needs to be in English and French. But if you cross to Quebec, then you're going to find that it's only French. So it is like for English Canada, you need to apply this, even if you're living like in Alberta, that is completely far from Quebec. But if you go to Quebec, it's only French. So it's very it's kind of, that's not really fair. But the reason that a lot of people use is that basically Quebec and the French Canadians are a small population compared to the rest of the country. And they're always scared that, they're going to lose their language eventually, or their language is going to be nothing compared to English. And, it's kind of unfortunate as well, because personally, I find that French is a beautiful language, just as beautiful as Spanish. And, but the way that they try to force it, recently I read that in all government buildings in Quebec, they're going to play Quebecois music. So I guess that they will be listening to Celine Dion in French the entire day or something like that. Yeah, it's true. And it's mandatory. And the way that they arrived to this reasoning is because there was this politician that she made it to an office building and of the government, and then she was like, how come that they're playing music in English? How come that we don't appreciate these hours? And then they pushed the legislation, not only Quebecois music.
Well, I hope they have a large repertoire to choose from. I don't really know much.
It's like in some cities, like at the 7-Eleven or the Circle K, they'll play classical music on a loudspeaker because they don't want the beggars and the drifters and the skateboarders and the young people hanging around the property. So it's like Quebec is like a giant 7-Eleven, and they're talking about, all right, if we just play Quebecois music all day, the Englishmen will stay out of our parking lot.
Basically, that's the conclusion.
I mean, who doesn't like Celine Dion, though?
I like Celine Dion.
I do too.
A lot of people like Celine Dion. I lived in Vegas. She had a residency there, but the Celine Dion show ends after 90 minutes, folks, and then people got to get on with their life. I mean, how long can you keep up the charade?
Loop it in all day. I mean, we can do this all day.
All right, real quick, I would like to give us a greatest hits shout out. Do we not have screen share today? Are we able to play that clip? It's a yes or no.
I believe we might be able to play the clip. Let me see if it'll allow me.
Okay, I do have one clip. Wait, we're about to find out. This is a mystery. I'm at the edge of my seat. Literally at the edge of my seat. If I scoot forward any farther. No!
I apologize, guys. I updated my computer and it removed all the permissions, and I have to figure it out. Anyone who knows me knows I am not technical. Why I do the technical job of this show, I will never know. I am not technical.
But do you have a PC or a Mac?
I have a Mac.
Steve Jobs, Foxconn, Chinese communism has infiltrated your CPU. I'm sorry, Martha. Well, anyway, we had a clip that we wanted to show from. All right, please clear up this pronunciation. Is it the Raven report or the Robin report?
The Robin report. Robin, yeah.
It's the Robin report. Okay,
yeah, I was
it
confused
is.
for a second too.
All right, so the Robin report was a talk show that you were on for how long?
Wow, I was for 1.5 seasons of that show, so it was like mostly a year, I think. Or
And is
yeah,
the show
actually,
still on?
unfortunately, now it's not on for different reasons. Basically, the producer didn't have time to continue with this, so
Gotcha.
yeah,
I was gonna say,
kind
why did
of
they cancel after
sad.
you showed up? Jeez, man, holy smokes! Come on, Canada.
That's
All right,
because
but
the Venezuelan, everything ends with us, even our country.
yeah, exactly. I know they replaced the producer with an ice age, and he's like, "I'm gonna need to check your papers before we do another season of the Robin Report, por favor." So the clip that we were going to show is I don't even remember what we were. Oh yeah, you were talking about Joe Biden. Everybody was talking about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and you pointed out the irony of in the middle of the Black Lives Matter movement and all the protests and riots after George Floyd, the Democrats' like way to communicate to the Black community that they see them, they hear them, and they care is to have a prosecutor be the vice presidential nominee, which I had to totally agree with. I mean, the Democrats did choose a cop. But there's another clip that I've seen of you that I absolutely adore where one of your co-hosts starts going a little bit into conspiracy land about medical advice. And then he just said, actually, I think I'm going to listen to the doctor on this one. And then they're trying back, well, I'm just saying that blah, blah, blah. And you're like, yeah, I'm just going to listen to the doctor. And there's a lot of really enjoyable clips. So it is the Robin Report, RABEN.
Yes.
If anybody wants to look at any clips of I'm Not Killing It, they got an Instagram. There's YouTube clips. Go check it out. And if you don't do it, it is because you sympathize with what's the name of the bad guy from The Incredibles? Him. He's the villain of the week. There you go. Everybody who doesn't go check out the Robin Report, you are in league with the bad guy from The Incredibles. And
exactly.
Then, next
that's
week
what I need to know. But look,
in
the conspiracy theory episode, I say something that I still keep. Like the only conspiracy theory that I believe is true is that Justin Trudeau is the bastard son of Fidel Castro. That's all I need to believe.
Okay. I mean, that is an interesting one, but of course, like that's one that we don't pay attention to down here because I mean our minds are in a different direction. What's the public perception of Trudeau today versus 2 years ago? Is he more popular, less popular? Not good, not good.
No, right now he's less popular. Martha, you're back.
I'm back. I left to see if I could fix it, and I think I fixed it. So let's see if we have that clip. Please tell me I do.
I don't think Joe picked her on the basis of her gender. I think he said he was going to pick a woman anyway, and I think most people expected him to pick a woman whether he committed to doing that or not. It was really once the racial uprising that happened following George Floyd really cemented that it would be such an important thing for him to choose a person of color.
Yeah, but don't you think that it's funny that considering the situation with George Floyd, he selected a former prosecutor? Like, if you're in a movement or if this situation led to the movement of defunding the police, electing a prosecutor is like the last thing you need on that matter. Because this woman was basically acting as a law enforcement in California.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think one of my favorites from Kamala's greatest hits is when she was still the DA in San Francisco and her office sent a letter to all these parents of the local school district basically saying, like, if your kids are true from school, basically the Einsatz group and are going to come to your house and take you to the camps.
That's your favorite Kamala moment?
She tried to play it down.
Mine was a little more...
It's one of my favorites from Kamala's greatest hits, the whole album.
Mine was like the over 2,000 people that were in jail for cannabis under Kamala. So, and then she admitted to smoking cannabis herself.
I remember that one. Oh my God.
Well, that was like that was when Kamala was heading out of her blue period and she was heading into Cubism. She's like, "What is freedom? I know. Let's throw all these people in jail for pot." And it was just it was political, artistic. It was awesome.
That was not awesome, Zach.
This is progressivism.
There are millions of people in this country over the
This
last
is progress.
80 years that we've had cannabis
This
prohibition
is democracy.
who have
This is
gone
progress.
to jail and lost everything, their freedom, their money, their family, like they've lost everything. And this woman makes a joke out of it. I just, the whole policy itself, which she is not responsible for, is a joke. But then her making a joke out of people's misery and suffering is just, I don't know how we can look at her, to be honest. I just, whatever.
So going from that, quick segue, do we have a ballpark estimate for how many states and or provinces of Canada cannabis is legal?
Well, right now, if I'm not wrong, actually cannabis is legal all across Canada because it was a federal decision.
I know. Yeah. Can you believe this? Canada, with their less freedom, cannabis is legal.
Well,
it's like that feeling of like when your younger sibling does something really cool and you're like low-key jealous.
I am so jealous of Canada and the amount of just freedom they have with cannabis and the amounts of money they're making. Canadian companies are investing in the United States and propping up the U.S. cannabis market because they're ahead of the game. We are sitting here on stupid legislation, not, just letting Canada beat us. So
we are sitting here with like Jeff Sessions still existing.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's very when it comes to Canada and cannabis, it's interesting because yes, cannabis is legalized in Canada, but it has so many restrictions still. Like the government has made the process so bureaucratic, so problematic, and they are still intervening a lot in this market. That in the end of the day, many people go to their regular drug dealer.
I mean, that happens here in the United States too. California had a news story not too long ago that they were going to take tax dollars, $100 million of Californian tax dollars to help the legal market because it was failing because of the regulations that they have. I mean, only a government can screw up a market like cannabis. I mean, the cartels can do it. What's going on with the California government? But yes, Josh here has a point. Wealthy people can laugh about marijuana crimes they don't deal with. This is true because if you have money, chances are you're not going to go to jail. Let's look at, I know it's not cannabis, it's a different drug, but we can look at Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, who has unfortunately a very bad addiction to heroin and other drugs. And he has never seen the inside of a jail cell for that. If you or I had a drug addiction of that nature, we probably would have seen many years behind bars. So, while it's funny to Kamala, it's absolutely tragic what happens in this country. And a lot of people who don't have money to pay their bail, when they do go to jail, have to plead guilty in order to be able to leave. So, it's disgusting what we do to people, and there are different classes of people, and it's based on whether you have money or you don't have money. Y'all know I'm a libertarian. I don't think this should be the way. If you want to do drugs, that's on you. But here we are.
Well, do we have any final questions for our guest?
Nobody's been asking any questions. Oh, well, I guess this one was probably directed more at me. I don't get why American libertarians' fixation with drugs. There are thousands of causes that need attention. Why drugs? Sergio, why drugs? Because there are a lot of people that are affected by it. There are a lot of people that need lubrication to get through life, and drugs and alcohol is that lubrication. And unfortunately, they wind up in jail. And being in jail for a choice you make is a tragedy.
It's not the drugs itself. It's we see the obscenity in the fact that so many of current incarcerations and convictions are over a plant. That is the part that we find obscene. It's not that we're saying like everybody should be, just like Ron Paul says, if they legalize heroin tomorrow, nobody in this conversation is going to go run to go get you some heroin just because it's not illegal anymore. So yeah, it's not the drug itself. Sir.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Well, some people are a little bit more rock and
Well, that
roll than I
wasn't
am.
expected. Uh-huh.
Exactly.
I
Listen,
But,
all I'm saying is I get that a lot from people when I talk about drug legalization, and they say things like, well, then everybody's going to go out and do drugs. And I wonder, most people have access to drugs. Most people are a phone call away from a drug dealer. What's stopping you from going to do this drug? Oh, I don't want to do the drug. Exactly. You're not going to
Darwinism.
go do drugs because
You
Or
know
an
they're
that
legal.
aversion to Darwinism.
I have a vision about drugs, and the way that I deal with this is like from legal framework, legalize it, deregulate it, like let the drug market, like don't put these people in debt for like a plant, like Zach is saying. But from a social point of view, I don't like when people like normalize the use of drugs either. Like I think from a legal framework, I have an opinion, but from a social standpoint, because I believe that the foundation of society, when you start normalizing drugs, then people consider that this is the easiest pathway to, to deal with problems. And that's when addiction comes, and that's when the danger of really ruining your life comes. And, for example, I live in downtown Toronto, and there are so many people with drug problems here. Walking in the street, sleeping in the streets, getting into a store and stealing, and doing like, we have a problem with people literally camping in parks and most of these people are people with problems with drug use, homeless people. And that's when really the abuse of these substances become a problem. And in the West Coast, it's like a times worse. Like they have literally a crisis of drugs right there. And that's when I have like those two things. Like from a governance perspective, don't let the government get involved, but don't be promoting the use of drugs or something that is okay.
Yeah, I see things a little differently. I agree with you. We probably shouldn't be promoting the use of drugs. I agree with that. I don't think that we should be talking about them being good things. However, I look at places like Portugal that has over 20 years of completely decriminalizing all drugs, and the use of drugs in Portugal has decreased substantially over the past 20 years. And they've been able to help people get out of addiction, which is a problem we have here, at least in the United States. There's nowhere for you to go if you do have a problem with addiction. And instead of using the money that we take from people in terms of taxes to put them in jail, we could be using that money. Of course, again, libertarians, we don't believe in taxation. Taxation is theft and all of those things. But if we are going to do those things, I much rather our money be used in a way that will help people rather than hurt them. And the current system is just
the
hurting.
way to translate that is knowing that we're going to have candidates that are running for office. There's all the things that we believe, which is true north, and then there's the direction that we are actually dragging public policy with the people we get elected into office. That's magnetic north. And Arvin Vohra is one of the people in the party who explained that to me. So yeah, by all means, keep reminding people of what true north is. But remember, when you have to get into a room and then deal with a whole bunch of other people who are absolutely not libertarian and who believe that the government should absolutely be in charge of all these things, what are the steps forward? What are the increments that you can propose that they are the least likely to fight you on, so that you can have the short-term effect of fewer people will fall into police nets or governmental nets and end up in jail or indebted to the government or any other just very unpleasant fate that can easily befall working class people. So yeah, what direction can we drag it in? Alrighty. So how can people follow Lola of Toronto? Do y'all have a digital footprint?
Yes, we do have an Instagram account. It's the only account we have for now because we find that it's the easiest one to communicate. We are going to work on our Facebook page soon enough, and you can find it in Lola-Toronto. So that's the way it goes. And we support a lot the folks in the US. We follow a lot people in Latin America. Honestly, now they have a chapter in Venezuela, which is amazing.
No kidding.
Yes, it's the newest chapter. And I
Do you
was
have
so
their Twitter
happy.
account? Let's push the Lola Venezuela as well.
Yeah, I think they don't have anything yet because it's super new. Like it just came out this week. And honestly, I'm very happy. I find that in Latin America, we need these movements. Obviously, in Canada and the US too, but Latin America is like a big thing. And they
Mhm.
even have chapters in Israel, in India, in Ghana. So these are countries that definitely need more women following the freedom path.
Absolutely. We definitely do. And I agree with you. Latin America definitely needs more push from women, more help with the feminism. we
Yeah,
need
but
more.
it was feminism because that's the thing. Like in Latin America, unfortunately, feminism has been taken by the left, and then you see all these women. Most of them sympathize with the left. So it's very ironic, and I want to tell this story. But I had friends in Venezuela that they were feminists, and when they moved to Argentina, they found that most of the feminists in Argentina were very left leaning. So they had like this conflict, like, wow, like my
When
country
we
is
say very left-leaning, does this mean like pro-Castro, pro-Chavez?
and pro Cristina Kirchner and all these people, and probably, I don't know, Perón as well. So,
Okay, so these people who are for people's rights were for the authoritarian left. Okay.
that's correct. So, many of these people, like I had this friend that she had this conflict because she was like, how to tell them that the people protesting in Venezuela are not counter-revolutionary terrorists when you are basically telling me that's what you believe and you consider yourself a feminist. Like, dude, that's why women like me had to leave Venezuela. That doesn't make any sense.
I agree. And we see in Latin America, there's so much, I don't know what to even call it, anti-woman stances. Central America, especially, it's something very tragic where little girls are still being sold. It happens in Venezuela a little too, as I believe. Children are sold to, it's just a horrible situation. So absolutely, we need more people working on these issues, especially in Latin America. So thank you for all the work you're doing, Anna. It was a pleasure talking to you tonight. Thank you for joining us. So everybody, please go follow Lola of Toronto at Lola-Toronto. Thank you, Anna. Have a
And
good
if you
night.
Thank you
don't,
for
it's
having
because
me.
you're the type of person who would want to kill Batman.
Thank you, Zach. So
I see you, audience.
we have a few events coming up that I wanted to talk
Yes, we
about.
do, but first I want to talk about gerrymandering. We'll do it quick.
Okay,
We got to
we'll
talk
do
about
quick
gerrymandering.
gerrymandering.
We promised the audience gerrymandering.
We
We're
did,
gonna give you guys some facts,
and I
not
did,
fiction.
and I did fix the problem. So we will have some visual. There we go. Look at that. America's most gerrymandered districts. Tell us about it, Zach.
Let's add a little bit of context. I'm going to give you guys the TLDR version up ahead. The most gerrymandered districts in America are Democratic districts. The ones who gerrymander the most are the Republicans. Now, let's jump into what we're looking at. Those are the top 5 worst gerrymandered districts in the entire country. You look at them, like 1 or 2 of them look like Taiwan, and the rest of them look like different dragons for different seasons. It's pretty epic, and that is supposed to like represent specific populations that incumbents wanted to keep inside of their district because it was advantageous to them. So yeah, that's the way that the data show it. Let's bring up another image because all 5 of those districts, as I said, those are the worst gerrymandered. Every one of those 5 districts is Democratic. 1 in Louisiana, 1 in New York, 2 in Texas, 1 in Illinois. Every one of those very intricate, like Smog, the dragon-shaped districts, is a blue district. But we look at a state like Ohio, we see some very strangely gerrymandered blue districts, but the overwhelming majority of the other districts have been gerrymandered red. Districts are not drawn at the federal level. That was struck down about 20 years ago by the Supreme Court. So since then, all the redistricting is done at the state level. Sometimes there's special commissions that do it. Other times it's done directly by the state legislature. And in more of the states where gerrymandering is happening, it is Republicans in the legislature who are gerrymandering, obviously to give their party the bigger advantage. Do we have another gerrymandering map? That one was
We
just
do.
Ohio. Let's
We
bring
do
up
have
North
another.
Carolina. I like North Carolina.
There
All
you
right,
go.
look at that. So there are 2 urban centers where you see there are blue majority districts, and the rest of the state is red. And the folks at the New York Times broke down the statistics for us. So even though the number of voters in the state of North Carolina is very competitive, Democrats and Republicans are neck and neck, hovering around the 50%. Despite them being almost equal in voters, the Republicans got 10 out of 13 seats from the last congressional election in November. 10 out of 13 seats, even though you don't significantly have more votes than the other opposition. So that's what gerrymandering actually looks like. It is meant to help whoever the ruling party is. And in cases like this, opposition party people in North Carolina, it'll be the Democrats, or in Ohio, it'll be the Democrats too. They might hem and haw and scream and holler in front of the media about how this is unfair for civil rights, how this is unfair for all these voters, and blah, blah, blah. But they play the game too, because if you notice, their own blue incumbent districts get stranger and stranger looking as well. And it's no accident that the most gerrymandered districts are blue districts. Well, yeah, they're playing along with the Republicans in the Republican-controlled legislature. When we look at numbers at the national level, overall, yes, the Republicans lost their majority in the House of Representatives. That said, they still picked up 12 new districts, despite the Democrats having a slightly larger popular vote. That goes to show that in competitive districts, where it's closer to 50, they lost to Democrats. But in other districts, the Republicans gerrymandered themselves into being able to pick up 12 new seats that were formerly Democratic. So to give a quick summary on that, the most gerrymandered districts in America are blue districts, but the ones who absolutely gerrymander the majority of the time are Republicans. Now, what's that last graph? Can we bring that last graph up real quick?
We
I want to tell a
certainly
little
can.
story there. So this is an analysis of how Latinos voted in the last 20 years worth of election cycles. So we see the blue represents Democrat votes, the red represents Republican votes. What I find is interesting is for Latinos that went Republican, because we're looking at them because we in the LP have traditionally looked at disillusioned Republicans as the low-hanging fruit. Support for Latinos for the GOP seems to have peaked and risen and dropped like way more dramatically and way more gradually than it has with Latino support for the Democrats. We see support for the Democrats overall higher, but it ebbs and flows with a lot more frequency, whereas Latinos, a lot of them will become Republican, and then a lot of them start dropping off over 10 or 20 years. But what I think is really important is the peak for Latino Republicans was 2004. And then after 2004, due in part to huge disillusionment with George W. Bush, it slipped off again. Barack Obama helped recruit more Latinos to the Republican Party. But in the age of Trump, we do not see the same levels of Latino support for the GOP as we see Latino support for the Democrat. One reason, which, just to be honest, in my opinion, a lot of folks who have come to this country, even if they're citizens, they still have a mindset from the old country, which is the government should be paying for a lot of things. So a lot of Latinos who vote Democrat, like they do believe that the government should be paying for things. We need to reach out to those folks with education. However, a lot of Latinos drop off from voting Republican, in my opinion, because the GOP more and more is becoming a very hostile environment to Latinos. I mean, I'm just going to come out and say it. 5 nights a week, Tucker Carlson goes in front of tens of millions of people on a show and basically makes the case for why the next batch of Latinos showing up on the border are all MS-13, and they're going to come here and they're going to violate your wife and your daughter and steal your job and your Social Security.
You have to remember, Trump also made some pretty damaging remarks about Mexicans.
That's right. They bring crime.
Yeah.
The bad hombres. See, like the thing is, in the age of Trump, Republicans have talked so much crap to our ethnic group that we actually forget some of the greatest hits. There's so many. There's so many hits.
There are, and you know
they just keep coming out with new singles.
The thing that we Latinos experience a lot of is that most Americans can't tell the difference between, for example, you're Mexican American and I'm Cuban American, and we may look alike. We have a lot of the same values, but our countries are very, very, very different. Our foods are very different.
Yeah, Cuba, isn't that like the part of Mexico that's just south of Florida?
You know, I remember as a child when I lived in Venezuela, I came to the United States once and I told somebody that I lived in Venezuela and they're like, what part of Mexico is that? So we have, you know,
the far part.
Yeah, the part that sells to the United States the most oil, at least it did back then. But, you know, as Latinos, there's over 20 countries in Latin America. And, you know, we realize that most Americans can't tell the difference. So when Trump was talking about Mexicans, we all kind of took it like he's talking about me because he doesn't know the difference between a Mexican and a Cuban and a Venezuelan and an Argentinian, you know. So, yeah, it's really terrible when the president of the United States is talking about your ethnic group in a very terrible way. So surprisingly, a lot of people still support Trump within the Latin community. And so we're here to hopefully
yeah, a lot of those folks that I've noticed, a lot of Latinos that specifically support Donald Trump, it's either the pro-life thing or his anti-communist rhetoric, because even if they're US residents, US citizens, just the most traumatic experiences that they've had in their life are going to inform their worldview, which is why every time I go to Miami, I meet all kinds of Cubans and all kinds of Venezuelans who think that they're going to lecture me about politics in Cuba and Venezuela today, even though I've been connected for about 5 years and they've been disconnected for years. It informs their worldview. So some of the folks have blinders on, and they're going to support whoever is talking the most smack about communism. Or that said, for all the pissed off libertarian socialists watching this, the tankies, all right? When we're talking about communism, we're usually talking about tanky regimes, okay? But yeah, as far as the Trump movement, guys, you know, when you go calling an entire ethnic group murderers and rapists and bad hombres, don't be surprised when they abandon your party. Also,
I want to share this that Zach mentioned earlier, because this is beautiful. It is what we have been working on here at Latin Libertarians, Libertario Hispano. We love articles like this. So as you can see from the screen, the Cato Institute has a lovely article saying Latinos are twice as likely to support the Libertarian candidate. Folks, there's 30 million votes in the Hispanic community people that can actually vote. Our group as a whole will be about 60 million coming up here shortly. So that's why Zach and I are doing this. This is exactly the type of stuff we libertarians need to be focused on, because we fight every 4 years for 1 million votes. We really fight tooth and nail for 1 million votes. And here, Hispanic people that can vote in this country are going to vote, and they are likely to support us.
So just to give folks the numbers from that particular Cato study, and it was based on numbers from the Johnson campaign of 2016. The ordinary average number of Latinos in the United States who are going to be interested in a particular party is about 8%, where about 16% of them were interested in Gary Johnson specifically. And part of that was he had a more economic free market model, which attracted a lot of the folks who were very paranoid about, Joe Biden or Obama are going to do Marxian communism over here. And then the other reason, again, 2016, Donald Trump was saying a lot of the same crap about Latinos that he and other folks like Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller have been saying for several years. So yeah, absolutely, automatically right off the bat, twice as many Latinos were interested in Gary Johnson just because he was not behaving like a crappy human being. So that goes to show, for all the closed border libertarians who are still in our audience, we love you, but if you care about the party or about your own vote count, don't say your opinions about closed borders. If you're living, especially in a border state, I understand some of you guys are proclaiming your truth. I understand guys like Shapiro say, facts don't care about your feelings, but I'm going to tell you guys the real truth. Voters' feelings do not care about your facts.
No, they don't. But also, it's just kind of odd if we're here for freedom. How do you draw the line and say, but not freedom for you because you were born on this sign of an imaginary line? I mean, it's just, I don't get the concept, guys. I'm sorry. I know I'm Hispanic, and I know that I've benefited personally
with a pen and a paper and a borderline psychotic lack of empathy. That's how you do it.
I mean, I think that within the Hispanic community, there's so much love for this country because we come here for the things that we can't get in our own countries. You know, there's no freedom to be had in Cuba. So when we come here, we love this country and we will do anything for it. Latinos do sign up for the military, and, you know, we work hard. And
yeah, my uncle was born in Mexico and he served 20 years in the U.S. Navy with 6 combat tours.
Bingo, Josh. That's exactly what's going on. When you see how Democrats have embraced refugees from Afghanistan, but they refuse to embrace Cubans who are suffering and being killed just 90 miles off our coast, this is exactly the reason why it's happening. They want to support people who are going to come and vote Democrat. So imagine if we're able to actually affect something and get libertarians, Latinos to support libertarians. Then yeah, the border is definitely going to be closed until we can get more libertarians into power. It's just
second and third generation Cubans, more than 50% usually end up voting Democrats, but like first generation, whoever the immigrants are, they're just automatically pre-programmed to vote towards the right because, again, their experience with a tanky regime is informing their worldview for the rest of their life. And they need to hear folks talking about what we're talking about to be able to disengage from the snake oil that they've been sold by the right.
Last thing,
not saying
guys,
that the left is excused, but we bash on the left all the time here.
Speaking about Cuban stuff, back to Cuba because we are out of time. So guys, many of you may have heard, Zach and I are working on an initiative to help people in Cuba, as we've been discussing over and over, and I hate to bore people with the details, but it is urgent. People in Cuba have a high level of COVID and they have very little food. They have no medicine. And so our initiative is to get medicine directly into the hands of Cubans. We can achieve this by sending 22 pounds of medicine to each person that we have on our list. We're starting off with 10 people and hope to be able to accomplish that and then get many more people. If you'd like to help, peopleforcuba.com, you can find a link there to donate. Every single dollar that we collect will be going to Cuba, to this effort. And we didn't talk about the Spike events. Zach?
Yeah, well, real quick, where are people going to be able to hang out with you and me pretty soon? When and where?
So there are several events. If you're in Fort Lauderdale, the Mike Tremont campaign is going to host a dinner, and you and I will be there, Zach, on Friday, September 3rd, at the Moose Lodge. More information on Mike Tremont's page. Then the next day, they're doing an airboat tour that people can go to as well, and you get to hang out with Spike Cohen. Later in the day here in Miami, we are doing this rally for People for Cuba. We are hosting a peaceful protest for Cuba, for Nicaragua, for Venezuela, for freedom. The bottom line is freedom. There are so many countries, especially in Latin America, where there is a lack of freedom. So we're doing this, but also it's going to be a medicine drive. If you live in Miami and you want to, or somewhere nearby and you want to come by, please bring us a bottle of Tylenol, some Benadryl, whatever thing that you think Cubans might need that is medicine. We will be sending it all out to Cubans. A little bit after that, at 8 p.m., we have a very intimate dinner with Spike Cohen. Only 40 tickets available for that. Tickets are available right now. You can go to any one of our web pages, but it's on mine, Martha Bueno for District 10. So it's facebook.com/Bueno for Miami. And finally, the last event, we're doing a shooting event on Sunday, which is September 5th, which I know, Zach, you just got a little happy right there. I know that's your jam. We're doing shooting and archery at Top Gun here in Kendall, in my area in Miami. So it's going to be a fun weekend. Lots of stuff to do. I think we're all going to get sick of each other. So much spike, so much liberty all in one weekend. I don't know what to tell you. I'm excited.
Challenge accepted.
And I think you and I need a little competition shooting, although you're going to whoop my behind.
That remains to be seen.
Come on. How long did you teach shooting classes, Zach? Really?
About 5 years, but I've
Yeah.
also been a couple of years out of practice. So,
I think you're still going to whoop my behind. So can't wait to see that. I will take the pointers though. Just saying. So thank you everybody for staying with us tonight. We went a little over. We went a few minutes over. So sorry about that. Thank you for joining us. And we'll see you next week. Ciao, Cito.
Ciao, Cito.